to Amplifying Leadership podcast, where we talk about all things that make leadership great through tips, guest stories, and information. My name is Tara Lehman, and I'm a partner coach and consultant at Twin Life Coaching and Business Services. For our leadership clients, I aim to provide effective leadership coaching, consulting, and workshops to help build employees, retain great talent in your organization, and help improve your bottom line. You can check it all out at amplifyingleadership.ca, a division of Twin Life Coaching and Business Services. Today, I have a wonderful guest. Welcome, Tessa Kampen.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So we do talk about leadership. So why don't you tell us your leadership story, kind of where you went from and why now you do the leadership workshops and coaching that you do?
Yeah. Oh man, the stories. It's funny when people ask that, you're like, how much time do you have?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because it's where do we start? I'll give you a little bit of the journey. So my background is in dentistry. I was a dental assistant for 10 years. And then when I had my kids, I have two children. And I remember when my daughter was about 2 years old, I sort of got this desire to do something, but I didn't want to go back into dental. And so I always had a passion for people and helping people connect. And that's sort of my giftedness. And so I started working with an organization. At the time, they were called Mompreneurs. And I worked with women in business. And
I
so
think,
my leaders, yeah, go ahead.
I think that's where we met, Tessa,
I
years
think
and years
so.
ago. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so you and I do remember we met there because I was running events both in Guelph
Yeah.
and Kitchener.
Yeah.
And that's I think where I really started to step into this leadership role, even though I didn't see myself as a leader at that time. And it's interesting because I was helping women in business, but yet I had no business background. I had no business degree. And so, a bit of imposter syndrome, or a lot of imposter
Mm-hmm.
syndrome, was set in. But it was really, that was a really great opportunity for me to learn and grow and start to see sort of my potential, but also have other people speak into my life and say, hey, you would be really great at this, or,
Yeah.
you should start thinking about that.
That's awesome. So what are you
Yeah.
doing now, Tessa?
Yeah.
Tell us about your
So
business.
about I guess 2018, I pivoted and went up, I started to focus into leadership. And so I joined Maxwell Leadership in 2018. And I've been, coaching and training and speaking, but my favorite thing to do is to facilitate teams through team building workshops. And so, when we talk about leadership, it's such a big umbrella, right? When people say I'm a
Huge.
leadership trainer, you're like, what does that
Yeah,
mean?
exactly.
Right. So when I first started, I was like, oh, I'm a leadership trainer. It's like, but there's so many different aspects to leadership. And so for me, I just went back to where I feel I can add the most value. And that's going to be in my area of giftedness, which is connecting and communicating and collaborating. And so I now work, with teams and organizations, helping them do just that, helping them improve productivity and helping them lead their teams better, lead themselves better. And I bring in, our Maxwell leadership content and content that I've developed over the years. And yeah, it's been really fun.
That's awesome. So I love communication. I'm all
Mm-hmm.
about communication. In my corporate life, I was open door, open book. Everything should be very communicative. So I love that you do that as well. So how do
Yeah.
you do that with, maybe one of your workshops, or, what tools are you using with Maxwell?
Yeah, so I am certified DISC consultant.
Awesome.
I'm very fascinated with human behavior. I've always had this, desire to just try and understand people. And so I think, as a natural communicator, we often, that's what we do, is we're understanding people. And the thing about communication is it's really difficult because we all have different ways of communicating. But then on the other side, we all have different ways of wanting to be communicated to. And so I
Agree.
love using DISC. There's so many different tools that you can use, but I prefer to use DISC. I think it's really easy for teams to understand. It gives you a few letters and that's it. You don't have to remember any, large numbers and letters and all that
Yeah.
stuff. It's
No math.
no math, no. And so I use DISC. I'm very much a facilitator that believes that you need to, engage in what you're learning. And we do lots of interactive activities and have them just engage in their communication style, and then helping them understand their teams better. So we have to understand ourselves first. So they do the assessment, of course, and then I take them through workshops to be able to understand themselves and then understand their team, and where are there maybe misalignments. If there's someone you're not connecting with on your team, sometimes it's really just a matter of we don't speak the same language, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I love the example, like the analogy of, imagine you're sitting in a restaurant and it's an Italian restaurant, for example, and you're the only one that speaks English. You're not going to understand any of those conversations, and you might feel a
Yeah.
little bit awkward, but all of a sudden you hear someone speaking English and you're in tune to that, right? And
Yes.
then you can speak with those people, or there's like this instant connection. It's the same with communication, where it's like being in a restaurant, and if you don't
Hmm.
know someone else's communication style, you're not going to connect with them. So
Yes. 100% agree. I 100% agree with that because it is so true. I mean, women communicate differently than men, even in leadership roles, right? There's things that we have to remember about ourselves as being completely diverse.
yeah.
I have an identical twin sister, and I like to use the analogy of the fact that even identical twins can be different and
Mm.
diverse. We're actually what's called near identical. So my sister is left-handed and I'm right-handed, but we're still identical twins. So even we are
Yeah.
diverse. So I 100% agree with everything you said. I once did a disc workshop as well, many, many years ago, and it was very interesting and eye-opening to see what your team looks like. And
Hmm.
then it certainly helps with how to approach them with communication.
Absolutely. Yeah. When you know what to expect from people, then you know how to, prepare for those interactions with people. So it's really been the change for me. So my leadership went really, laser focused around that, and just getting really good at that area. And so it's really my focus, where I spend time every day learning and growing and understanding, and just making sure that I know as much as I can. And there's still so much to learn. So
Yeah,
I think I'll be
always.
doing this for a long time. Yes.
Yeah. So I have a curious question for you.
Yeah.
Um, when you've done all these trainings and workshops and discs, what would you say is different between men in leadership versus women in leadership roles?
Mm. Well, some women have longer hair.
Yeah.
We wear dresses. I don't know. Maybe now men can wear that too. So, I think there's a misconception. It's interesting because I just actually last week was working with a team, and they were talking about how some people are like, well, I'm not a leader, right? And how we see
Hmm.
sometimes when we think of a leader, sometimes we think of a position or we think of a
Yeah.
title. And there was also a generalization that was made, and they said, typically CEOs are male. Typically leaders are males. And that was interesting because I think there are a lot more female leaders out there than we know. The problem is we only know the loud ones,
Yes.
right? So when I think of myself, and I think that it again comes down to exactly what we're talking about in terms of disc and personalities. You are going to have leaders that show up in all different, sizes and
Hmm.
colors, and men, women, but we're not going to show up the same. And so I think typically when we think of a leader, again, I'm just going to speak for myself, it's like,
Of course.
oh, this male with a suit sitting in a leadership position, that's a leader. But the more that I'm working with teams and the more I'm starting to see myself as a leader, I'm like, no, leadership is influence. That's it.
Mm.
And so if we start to understand leadership as simply influence and not position or not title, then in fact, every person on this planet would be considered a leader. If
I
you
love
had,
it.
right? If you asked
Yeah.
anyone to do anything, if you even by some miracle had your kids do something for you because you asked them, you
Good
are a
luck.
leader, right? Because you've
Yeah.
been able to influence them. And so, yeah, I just definitely, just the teams that I work with, I will say it is more male dominant. But what's really cool is the conversations around leadership are how do we get more women? And I really think the problem isn't that we're not wanting women in leadership. I think the problem is women are not stepping forward into those positions. So, we
Mhm.
need to sort of be careful when we start to pigeonhole organizations and say they only have male. Well, maybe they only have male because women aren't showing up.
I was just writing a blog post on that literally before we talked today
Okay.
because I come from the trucking industry, heavily
Yeah.
male dominated. And I was talking about the need for diversity. But the problem is the recruiting. It really starts there because women don't want to go into heavily male dominated if they don't feel they can grow into leadership roles or they
Yeah.
won't be heard. And I think a lot of it is unconscious bias.
Hmm.
It's there, they don't know they're doing it, but us women may not want to apply to a company we don't feel we're going to move up in. So funny you said that because I was literally writing about the exact
I
same
love
thing.
it. I look forward to reading it because it is true, right? There is an unconscious bias. And I think,
Mhm.
if more women just felt comfortable stepping into those roles and saw themselves as leaders. Again, last week when I was there, I said to them, 2 years ago, if someone said, would you come and train the senior leadership team? I would have been like, no way.
Yeah.
Because in my head, I saw myself here and I saw them there, right? And it's
Hmm.
like, it's not even a matter of here and there. They may have a fancy title, make more money, drive a fancy car, but that doesn't mean that I don't belong in that room.
We're all
And
human,
yeah,
right? We're all
yeah,
people.
exactly.
100%. Even at the top, there's still people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So, is there any big obstacles that you've faced while getting into your leadership role with your company? I know it's your company, but like any
Mhm.
obstacles you faced that you wanted to share?
Yeah, me. I'm probably the biggest obstacle, to be honest, right? I think anytime there's so many opportunities around us, and I've had so many great opportunities, but I think that I just continue to be the obstacle that gets in the way. Whether it's lack of belief in myself or, I don't feel I should be in that position. Actually, just yesterday, someone asked me, "Hey, I would love for you to send us your speaker fee and sort of like what are the topics you speak on?" And my first thought, like, gonna be completely transparent, was I'm not a speaker. I
Yes,
don't
you
know,
are.
right? But so it's funny, right? It's like I get in the way of my
Mhm.
own journey and my own success. And I think if we're being honest with ourselves, we are the biggest obstacle because we often think that there's all these circumstances and there's all these things in our way, and then we try to change that, right? If we have something going on, we're like, okay, let me
Mhm.
see what's going on outside of me that I need to change. But I think the real question is, what do I need to change in myself so that I can get around this
Yeah.
particular obstacle? And so, yeah, I honestly cannot pinpoint or finger point anything. Like, I'm the biggest obstacle always.
I agree. And as you and I were talking about earlier today, my goal this year is to do things afraid. Just do them.
Yeah.
It's like that. Just do it, but just do it afraid.
Yeah.
Just go for it. I think that's the biggest mindset shift for myself as well when we talk about us being the biggest obstacle, because really it is.
Yeah. And
So
it's
go
this
ahead.
just jump. I remember one of my mentors would always say, jump and build your wings on the way down. Right?
I
Like,
love that.
you're
Love it.
gonna you're gonna make mistakes.
Hmm.
That's okay. They're just opportunities to learn and opportunities to grow. And no one's good the first time. John Maxwell says that all the time. No one's good the first time. But if you don't even take that chance on the first time, then there's no way you can improve. And the other
Hmm.
thing too is I think people are forgiving. Like, people
Yes.
genuinely want to see you succeed. And so if you do something and it doesn't work out or it's not perfect, people don't want to make fun of you. They don't want to see you fail. People who do, I think, are just jealous. But in general, people want to see you succeed. They want to see
Yeah.
real people succeed.
Yeah. And they want to see real people at the top because, if you're an influencer,
Yeah,
you have to be able to also be inclusive and talk to people. So, yeah, 100%.
absolutely.
So, what would be that one key takeaway that we should take from Tessa today when it comes to communication or leadership in general?
Yeah. I think the one thing, and this is something I've, learned over and over, is to just focus on what you're good at. To really find that thing that comes natural to you, that you're naturally gifted in, but also that brings you joy.
Hmm.
Because you could be really good at something and, your colleagues or your family or even the people you lead are constantly praising you and, encouraging you to do that, but it doesn't actually fill you. That may not be the area that you want to focus on,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so just because you're good at something doesn't mean you have to do it. So I think it's finding that balance between I'm actually good at this and it really fills me. It really brings me joy because then it doesn't feel like work. And then when you're doing it and you're hitting those stumbling blocks, you're going to want to persevere and go through it because it's worth it. It's
Hmm.
fun. It gives you joy even when it's not fun, you
Yeah.
still enjoy doing it, right? So I think that's the biggest lesson that I've learned is just really staying true to what makes you strong, what makes you passionate, and also what you're good at.
Hmm.
Um, but not
Like having
trying
a
to
purpose.
do, yeah, not
Yeah,
trying to do too many things just because other people tell you you're good at it or you should do it.
I agree. So, how can people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about, say, your disc workshops or other things that you do?
Yeah, you can find me on social just under my name. And then at TessaKampen.com is my website. So yeah, TessaKampen.com or just my name on social.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing everything. And I'm having a great communication conversation because that is my number one for leaders. Get that communication under control. Thank you
Hmm.
so much, Tessa, for joining
Yeah,
us
my
today.
pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for your time today. And as always, I hope you gained some insights and maybe some even great ideas to take back to your organization from Tessa. If you're in need of some leadership coaching, consulting, or workshops, or want to be a guest on this podcast, please reach out to me at tara@twinlifecoaching.ca. To find out more about my leadership services, please visit amplifyingleadership.ca, a Twin Life Coaching and Business Services division. Until next time, please be safe and be an amazing leader or leader to be.